So, we get to have some fun this morning. Not at the expense of Marley May, though. She's going to scream. Everybody plug your ears. We get to have some fun this morning. Tim, who makes the greatest pickup? Tim, who makes the greatest pickup? You can't ruin my illustration. Okay, Tim thinks Ford makes the greatest pickup. Dean, who makes the greatest pickup? What is it? It's a bow tie. That's a Chevy, for those of you who don't know. Actions speak louder than words, right, Dean? Right? Right? Hey, Tim, you have 3 vehicles. How many of them are GM products? Oh. In case you guys don't know, the gray Ford's gone. It made me sad, because I actually have to agree with Tim on this Ford thing. But now you guys can give Tim a hard time. So you got bait to fire back with. I know, I'm going to get made fun of a lot when this sermon's over, just so y'all know. Maybe in the middle of it now. But the whole point of that was because Tim began to see greater things. There's the joke. Okay. So today we're talking about characters in John. And we have been for a while. We were supposed to last week at Easter until I got thrown for a loop up here. We didn't even talk about what I had planned at all. Today we're going to talk about a man by the name of Nathaniel. It's one of the first encounters with Jesus in the book of John. And it's one of the first characters they talk about. So if you notice, we haven't really been going through in order. But we're going to talk about perception. We're going to talk about seeing greater things and not just seeing things from the outward appearance, but digging deeper, seeing things for the better meaning and what they are. Most of us, I think, see much less than we realize. You know, we feel like we have a decent grasp of our current situation, but do we really? You know, this happens with the youth a lot. You know, we talk to them a lot about making sure that they're not falling into a trap with the people around them, making sure they're not falling victim to things going on in the world. And a lot of times you hear the kids, I got this, I know. But are they seeing the deeper side of it? I mean, do they really understand how hard peer pressure can hit them? And that's not just through our youth. We go through peer pressure almost all of our life. You know, we have those friends who persuade us to do things that maybe we know, even as we get older, maybe we know probably isn't the right thing to do. Perhaps we're confident of our assessment of our family, or our friends, or our status at work. But life is much more than those things. That's what I want to talk about today. Not only just our perception of reality as it is, but do we see what's really going on around us? I don't remember who the speaker was, Lucado or maybe Louis Giglio. I don't remember who was telling the story, but it was one of those guys. He was talking about, I think I've told a lot of you this, he was talking about speaking in front of this massive church, and he said there was one kid in the back who he was told when he very first got there that the kid was autistic and he loved to draw. And there's a lot of times in the middle of service as he was drawing, he would start to make some noises, and they said, but just keep going, don't draw attention to it because the kid will run out of the service. And he said, well, that's no big thing to me. And so they go through, and sure enough, he said, day one of speaking, the kid, he sits right on the outside, right near the middle of the aisle, and he's just drawing away. You know, and so day 2 happens, and he said, day 3 gets there, and he said, I saw the kid turn the page as he was drawing. He was done with that drawing, and he began to draw again. He said, so at the end of the day, I walked back there, and I introduced myself to his family, I introduced myself to the kid. He was smiling. And he said, I hear you like to draw. And the kid shook his head a little bit. He said, can I see what you draw? And the kid flips it over. He said, and the drawing was of me standing there in front of the church. And he said, it was so well done. He said, it had the aisles of seats had people's, you could see the back of people's head. He had been sitting there for 3 days drawing the church. He said, but that's not what amazed me. He said, what amazed me was what was up above, everybody sitting there. He said, beautifully depicted in this drawing was a battle between angels and demons going on all around the people in this church. And he said, I looked at the kid and I said, is this what you see? And he said he could have not more emphatically shake his head, yes. Guys, that's what we're going to talk about today, is seeing the greater things going on around us. Understanding that there is much more at stake in this world than just our jobs, our family, our life. There is much more going on. So if you would, open up with me to John chapter 1, starting with verse 45. Word will be on the screen if you want to read it from the screen. But John chapter 1, verse 45. Let me give you a little bit about Nathanael before we start. Okay, he's otherwise unknown disciple besides right here in the book of John. Okay, John tends to give much more depth to these episodes that we're going to talk about. So that's one reason we're using John's encounters. And Nathanael may have very well been a regular disciple, but this is the only place he is mentioned. If he was an apostle, though, he had a secondary name. And a lot of biblical scholars tend to think that Nathanael and Bartholomew are the same person. Because Bartholomew is not mentioned throughout John, but is mentioned in all the others, and Nathanael is not. So, he's not in any of the synoptics, but here he is in John. And both of those people are associated with Philip and his introduction to Jesus. So there's a lot of similarities between the two. So, like I said, it's a, kind of left up to your interpretation of what you believe, but there's a good chance that they are the same people. But anyway, here we go. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael responds, Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that. He then added, very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Nathanael. This is a very brief encounter given to us in John right here. But I think it's filled with so much. Philip takes Nathanael to Jesus. All of these men had grown up in the same general area. And since Philip identifies Jesus as the son of Joseph, okay, all of them have been acquainted with Jesus at some point, because calling him the son of Joseph doesn't go against the virgin birth. It's just who he would have grew up with, who he would have been named by his whole life. I think Philip's description of Jesus is pretty fantastic. Jesus is not just some local guy. The one Moses wrote about. That's what he says. We have found the one Moses wrote about. And that comes from Deuteronomy 18. It says, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own brothers. You must listen to him. Moses tells all the people of Israel that in the future there will be a leader. He will be a Jew, just like Moses. And he will also be a true prophet, speaking the very words of God. And then Moses goes on in Deuteronomy 18 to talk about how you can identify a true prophet and a fake prophet. The key was the accuracy about predicting the future. He's from where? What does it say? Nazareth? what's Nathaniel say? What good can come from Nazareth? You know, I'm sure there's people that say that about Macksville. What good can come from Macksville? What good can come from ... Name a state, name a place. We've all talked about it. What good can come from Oklahoma? It's definitely not the roads. But we like to label people. We like to label them. But many of our labels that we put on life break down under scrutiny. I mean, whatever label it is you place on somebody. Religion, race, gender, whatever. It breaks down under scrutiny. But we get very comfortable in pigeonholing people. Because if we pigeonhole them, we put them in a box and we can understand them. But there's so much more to a person than that. I mean, Nathaniel, he questioned Jesus' credentials just because of where he's from. He has no idea he's from Nazareth. Let's go back to where I started. I want to be real honest with you guys. I come to Dean and I ask him about a truck, and I come to Tim. I know Tim can tear apart my truck and fix it for me. I want to take his credentials more. Not that I don't trust Dean, but that's just who it is, because I know him. But we label people. We don't take their experience. We don't take what they are. Because we pigeonhole them. We put them in this box. They possibly can't know that. They possibly can't understand that. I have a really good friend who is a very successful minister right now, who had a terrible time finding a job off the bat when he went into ministry because he didn't go to school for it. And there were 3 or 4 churches right off the bat that told him, what do you know? How do you know you can do this? Which is okay to question that. I mean, I understand that from a background perspective. But he is now doing wonderful things. It has amazed me what Jeff is doing. But he just got labeled right off the bat by certain people. Before they even experienced him, before they even talked to him, was already questioning. And that's where Nathaniel is with Jesus at this point. He's like, who is he? He can't know anything. And so Philip does the best thing I think he can do. He just says, come and see. If you don't believe it, come and see it for yourself. Let him show you. Let him show you. He doesn't argue with him. Doesn't debate it. He said, just come meet Jesus for yourself. Few people get saved by an argument. Meeting Jesus is what really saves them. William Barclay tells a story about how at the turn of the century, Thomas Huxley, the great agnostic, was attending a party at a country mansion. This is what Barclay says. He says, rich people do parties different than us. The guests stayed for several days. Sunday came around and most of the guests prepared to go to church. He says, very naturally, Huxley did not get ready. Instead, he approached a man known to have a simple and radiant Christian faith. Huxley said to him, suppose you don't go to church today. Suppose you stay at home and you tell me quite simply what your Christian faith means to you and why you are a Christian. The man said to him, you could demolish my arguments in an instant. I'm not clever enough to argue with you. Huxley gently said to him, I don't want to argue. I just want you to tell me simply what this Christ means to you. So the man stayed at home and told Huxley most simply of his faith. When he finished, there were tears in the great agnostic's eyes. He said, I would give my right hand if only I could believe that. It was not a clever argument that touched Huxley's heart, but the simple story of the man's faith. The best argument to say to people is come and see. Come and see. So he does. Daniel doesn't rebut us. Fine, let's go. But let's be honest here. We're human. Do you think that Nathaniel's hopes on who this guy were real high going into it? I mean, he just labeled him, did he not? I mean, I'll meet people in life. I'm not going to say I'm not real good at not labeling people, okay? And I'll go home and I'll tell my wife about it. She hasn't met him yet. And a lot of times if she's getting ready to meet them, or she knows she's going to in the next few days, and I'll start to tell her, and she'll be like, don't tell me these things. I don't want to know them. Let me meet them on my own. It's pretty smart on her part. It's not so smart on my part for labeling them and just casting that label on my wife, but it happens. She's like, let me go and see. Let me be invited. Let me make that impression myself. So Nathaniel said, all right, let's go. Jesus calls him a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false or no deceit. So is Jesus being snarky here? Because we know what Jesus really thinks about a lot of the upper Israelites at this time. Okay? We can read Scripture and see what he really thinks and how he just puts them in their place a lot. But I think this time he's being sincere. Because there's no quip afterwards, there's no rebuttal, there's no, hey, let's put him in his place. And that's not like Jesus. It's not like Jesus just to make a snarky comment. I think there's sincerity here. I think Jesus believes that Nathaniel has an honest approach to life. I would think he didn't have an honest approach to life if by the invitation to come and see, he said, no, I'm not going. He's from Nazareth. I don't care. But I think his honest approach to life was like, well, yeah, let's go check this out. Could it possibly be? I think there's kind of an allusion to Jacob here from the Old Testament. Jacob was a very conniving man. He cheated many people. He would try to get the best of God, so God turned the tables on him. But he also gave Jacob a great vision, which the end of our passage alluded to. When heavens were opened. In the end, Jacob became a real believer and the founder of the nation of Israel. So how did Jesus know Nathaniel's character before Nathaniel ever got there? Nathaniel doesn't accept that compliment right off the bat either. He digs much deeper. He says, whoa, 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 how do you know me? How do you know me? But Jesus said, I saw you under the fig tree before Philip ever called you. The supernatural insight of Christ himself. And that phrase right there was enough to convince Nathaniel. He gives a wonderful statement of faith about the King of Israel. So, how did Jesus' statement at this point turn Nathaniel's heart? But if it was that easy, man, I can tell you a lot of places, some of you have been that you didn't know I saw yet. You know what I mean? Like, but that's simply all. I saw you under the fig tree. And the thing is like, man, this has to be the King of Israel. How did Jesus know his character so intimately, so deeply at this point? He was a man of no deceit. I saw you under a fig tree, and Nathanael's like, dang, I'm on board. All we can say is there was enough for him. That's all he needed. Guys, Christ does more than just read minds. The end of that scripture says he can open heaven. Nathanael's amazement was just too limited. Jesus can do a lot more than tell him where Nathanael had been. But all I had to do was tell him, I've seen you under a fig tree. Many yearn in our life for a deeper spiritual experience. And we spend a lot of our life looking for that deeper spiritual experience. And a lot of times that takes a lot of people down avenues that was not what that avenue was intended for. That avenue wasn't going to get you anywhere closer to a deeper spiritual experience. But it's because we don't understand what that yearning is inside of us. And we misconstrue it for something else. We fill that yearning, that void, with some awful things in our life. As you're going to see what you want to see, I want to read to you from the Humanist Manifesto, number 2, which was written in 1973, a small excerpt. It says, we find, this is the very first paragraph, we find insufficient evidence for belief in the existence of the supernatural. It is either meaningless or irrelevant. It continues, we can discover no divine purpose or plan for human species. Well, there is much that we do not know. Humans are responsible for what we are or will become. No deity will save us. We must save ourselves. Literally, thousands of scientists, educators, political leaders have put their signatures on that document. My favorite part is we can find no evidence. Well, there is much that we do not know. You guys get this? We find no evidence, but we're also claiming complete ignorance. Guys, it's what you want to see. It's what you want to see. There's a divine purpose in life, and you can ignore it if you want. You can ignore it if you want. I don't know if I ever told you the illustration of a guy named Dr. Pearsall. But Dr. Pearsall went in to the Sistine Chapel. Everybody know what's on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? It's a beautiful work. A religious work by Michelangelo. It's a very religious work with angels, all sorts of things involved in it. Dr. Pearsall goes in and he says, from when you very first walk in, he said, there's not a lot to see. He said, as you reach the center, all you see is everybody with their heads just praying like this. And he said, what amazed me most, he said, was yes, the painting was beautiful. He said, but while I stood there in time, studying this painting, he said, I could see a fly on the ceiling. And he said, all I could think about that rest of that time was that fly has no idea what's underneath him. Because standing where I was standing, I could see the big picture. But that fly can only see one color. And it's the one he landed on. Guys, where are you at in life with your spirituality and your faith? Are you landing on the painting? Or are you stepping back and seeing the bigger picture and what's really going on? That there is a fight daily for you. And it's going to continue all day long. It's going to continue while you sleep. And then you're going to wake up. And whether you say your prayers and acknowledge that God has given you another day, that fight is going to continue. I think the only way we ever come close to this in our lives is when we have a parent or a child that has gone astray in their life. And we spend diligent hours thinking and wondering where they're at, what they're doing, who they're with, are they doing the right things? How deep is your perception? I'm not asking you to go get involved in a spiritual war, because that's going to happen without you. What I want you to acknowledge today is that there is a God who loves you so intimately that He is fighting day and night for you. So that you can see the same thing that Jesus promised Nathanael. Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. How deep is your perception? Do you understand that there is a God fighting for you day after day because He loves you intimately and that much? Or are you stuck on the ceiling, wrapped up in your own life, that you can't see that going on? So as we go throughout the rest of these encounters, we're going to begin to see Jesus in a new light. Like we started talking about how to be born again and understanding what that means with Nicodemus. And we went through the life of Jesus through Holy Week and His encounters there. And we see what it's like to encounter Christ through His death and resurrection. And what He has to offer. So now I'm asking you to encounter Him in a new way. Don't grow stagnant in the way you're in. Don't grow stale with what you're doing. Wake up and encounter Him fresh and anew. Bring life to your perception of Jesus. So that when He makes a simple claim of, I saw you under the fig tree, it changes your life. So that when He speaks softly to you, you hear the voice of God. How deep is your perception? Pray with me. Father God, we thank you so much for this time to be in your life. We thank you that you are part of it, that we get to live in your life, Father, that you give us this life to live freely. But God, we just ask now that you help us to encounter your Son each and every day of our life. That we acknowledge He is working, He is fighting for us. And that we get to do His fighting here on earth. That we get to be His hands and feet in the light as we reach out to others. Help us to encounter and be bold and courageous in our life. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.